It's time for Windows Weekly, a brand new year with Mary Jo Foley and Paul Thurrott. They'll go through their New Year resolutions, tech resolutions anyway. We'll also talk a little bit about Windows 8, Windows Phone 7, and our predictions for CES. It's all next on Windows Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Windows Weekly is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com. This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley, episode 242, recorded January 5th, 2012. Refreshing and resetting. Windows Weekly is brought to you by Audible.com. To download the free audiobook of your choice, visit audible.com/windows. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show that covers everything you need to know about Microsoft. And here they are, ladies and gentlemen, the stars of our show, the king and queen of Microsoftian. Is that a land? The land of Microsofty. Mr. Paul Thurrott. Happy New Year, Paul. Yeah, it does.
Thank you.
It's like Carvel's new Microsofty.
It's in the shape of a whale cake. Remember those ads?
Yeah.
It's the Carvel, you know, these
Carvel, was it Humpy the whale? What was his name? Bumpy?
Yeah, they were all with the same pan, but they would, you know,
right.
decorate them differently.
Right. They had one cake. Yeah. It was all the same. It was a whale. Also, Mary Jo Foley is here from All Things Microsoft, all about Microsoft, all about Microsoft.com, the ZDNet blog. Hey, Mary Jo. Happy New Year.
Hey, Leo. Thank you.
We have New Year's resolutions, do we not?
We do.
Before we do that, I do want to point out that next week, of course, is our CES coverage. And somehow, I don't know how, both Paul and Mary Jo got a hall pass and will not be attending. I thought that was required.
More important, almost. When are we actually doing next week's episode?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure I have it on the calendar. Let me check. We were going to ask you, and you don't have to, but turns out Microsoft, you know, Microsoft has announced that this is their last CES. There will be a booth, Ballmer will speak, and then that's it. Next year, nothing. And so we thought, since this was the last Microsoft keynote at CES, that we should rebroadcast it. So we will. That's our that's Monday evening. I think it starts at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, and Microsoft's going to stream it, so we'll rebroadcast the stream, and we'd like to invite you to, if you'd like to be on and commentate.
When is this?
I think it's Monday evening. That's not the official Windows Weekly record time, but we thought that'd be kind of fun.
I should probably look at my
And then we
calendar.
were thinking of doing Windows Weekly the next morning to talk about it, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So we have it on the schedule as at 10:30 Pacific, which is 2:30 your time, or 1:30 your time.
On Tuesday the 10th.
Tuesday the 10th.
Yep. Actually, I do have that in my calendar. Look at that. Okay.
Look at that.
So
it's an amazing thing.
I would be able to, if you want.
Think about if you guys would like to just do the Mystery Science Theater 3000 thing. We'll just put silhouettes.
Yeah, no, my life is always like Mystery Science Theater. It's only occasionally recorded. But
you could comment on Steve's talk, and you know that could be kind of fun. So we're thinking of we'll be doing that. I believe Monday. The keynote is at 6:30 p.m. Pacific, 9:30 Eastern, and then we'll go straight from that keynote to the digital experience, which is one of 3 events that they do every year at CES, where they get a ballroom. And companies that already often have, million-dollar booths on the show floor pay even more money, 15 grand.
You know, it didn't start out that way, though. So the point behind digital experience and showstoppers was always the companies that couldn't afford to do that.
But what CES has a tight grip on this, right?
Well, no. Well, I don't know that, but the way I perceived it, because I saw it change over time, was that press would go in there. Now bloggers, of course, go in there. And that's all they cover, because you can walk around with a camera and you can hold
It's really
you
easy.
can hold a product, and there's no crowd noise.
It's
and
so
it's
simple.
Really, right. It's only for press. Plus, there's free food now.
And there's excellent food.
Microsoft and Dell and HP and all of a sudden all these huge companies said, whoa, what's this?
Right.
And they realized they could hone in on this, because getting into showstoppers or digital experience is very inexpensive compared to getting into CES.
Right.
And so for them, it was just like
it's 15 grand, I think, is the typical cost. And you'll get 50, 100 companies in there, lots of really good food. They often have a theme A couple of years ago, the digital experience event theme was some sort of zoo, and they had scantily clad women painted as zebras and giraffes.
I remember that.
Yeah, who could forget? It was kind of searing. This year, I think it's a Wild West rodeo, so that'll be fun.
Jeez.
And there, you know, the food
really
is so good that they actually are extremely restrictive on getting in. I actually boycotted them for a dozen years because they said, you can go, but your producer can't come. I said, I'm not there for the free food. He's not there for the free food. We're trying to cover it. I need a producer.
He won't eat.
Yeah, that's what I said.
That's why he was hired. He doesn't need to
If
eat.
you'd prefer, I can make sure he doesn't eat any of your special food.
Right.
Oh, my God. I still kind of don't like these guys, but we are going to be there. And then, you know, the Consumer Electronics Show, realizing that this was a boon, do their own preview event Sunday night. So Sunday night, we're going to do CES Unveiled, Tom Merritt, Ayaz Akhtar, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Monday night, the Ballmer keynote, then at 7:30 p.m. Pacific, the Digital Experience, and I think that's Tom Merritt and Sarah Lane. And then Tuesday night, it's Showstoppers, which is, to me, the most convivial event. I like Showstoppers. Stephen
to me,
Leon.
Showstoppers and Digital Experience are like Ford and Mercury.
Yes.
But I see what you're saying.
Yeah, no, there's flip sides of the same coin, but that's a fun one. And Dick DiBartolo will do the weekly daily gizwiz from the Showstoppers Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. And, of course, we'll be all live all day Tuesday through Friday from the show floor. We're going to be doing Home Theater Geeks, Windows Weekly, Mac Break Weekly. We'll be talking about photography because the photo show is going on concurrently in town. You know what's not going on next week?
The nude photo show?
The nude photo show. The adult video news.
And now you find out why I'm really not going.
The Adult Expo isn't going to be there.
Right.
They said, oh, well, they had some Fakatka thing like CES used to be over a weekend. We need to be on a weekend, and it's not a weekend, so they're going to do it later in the month. So I don't know. I don't know who's going to suffer more, CES or Adult Expo. You're wise to say nothing at this point, Paul.
I don't know. What
your demurrer is appreciated, as I'm sure Mary Jo will express. So let's talk a little bit about New Year's. First of all, did you have a good Mary Jo? Did you go down to Times Square and watch the ball drop?
Oh, no, never. That's just a bad idea waiting to happen. I did not.
They had the statistics. Ryan Seacrest, that's what I did, by the way. I watched it on TV. Ryan Seacrest told me that only 20% of the people in Times Square were from Manhattan.
I'm surprised it's that many.
I'm surprised it's that
That's
many.
probably true on any given day, Leo.
Maybe they just didn't know. They're going, wow, what's the big deal? What's the crowd? I just came to see the Naked Cowboy. What's going on here?
Right.
Yeah. So quiet evening at home, Mary Jo, or did you don the Cinderella slippers and dance the night away?
I actually commemorated the New Year by uncorking my first home brew.
Ooh.
That I made.
Wow. I knew you liked beer. I didn't realize you took it that seriously. You're brewing it.
Yes, I'm trying to brew it, and I'm even code-naming my beers by cities, just like someone else we know.
So which city did you have on New Year's Eve?
I had Augusta, which was a chocolate maple porter that I brewed myself.
Camole. Was it good?
It was good. Yeah, surprisingly good. How about that?
Sounds fantastic. Chocolate maple porter. That sounds like a dessert. That sounds like you'd need a fork to eat to drink it. Wow.
Yes,
so now,
I did. But it was really good. It was surprising that it, it's because it's not that easy. I mean, it's not
hard to
but
make
it's
good beer. No, it's
a
hard
lot
to
of
make
variables.
I've had a lot of homebrew.
Yeah.
And most of the time I find myself going, oh, that's nice. But now, how does the condo association feel about you brewing beer in the garbage room down there?
Well, luckily, I'm only brewing a very small amount, a 1 gallon batch, since I live in a small
it's in the bathtub.
Space. I don't think it was wiser, hopefully.
Well, that's neat. How about you, Paul? Did you probably went to bed early. You seem like you go to bed early. Maybe you played a couple of rounds of Modern Warfare 3 and that was early to bed.
You know, I drank like an idiot, and I ate too much, and I was sick for 2 days. So
now I understand New Year's resolution number 1.
You'd think after 45 years in this earth, I would have figured
You'd
this one
learn
out.
something.
Yeah.
So let's get to our New Year's resolutions, our tech resolutions for 2012. Apparently, this list was much longer.
Yes.
Until Mary Jo excised all her resolutions.
Mary Jo resolved not to have resolutions.
I think probably that's a good idea.
Yeah, that was my first
Actually,
resolution. My
yeah,
first
that is what
resolution
it
was
is.
don't make resolutions.
I know, because you break them. You break them every time. I don't know anybody who makes resolutions and then a year later says, wow, that really worked out. I did it.
Well, okay. A year ago, you know, I talked about losing weight, and
How's that gone, by the way?
so I did lose 26 pounds in 2011, although I gained more than a few back over the last couple of months.
And this is with Gary Taub's no-carb diet. You know who's now into this? Completely, seemingly independently, is Steve Gibson's reading the Good Calories, Bad Calories book.
No, it's scientifically valid and all that stuff.
I love it, yeah.
I think the big stuff I just wanted to put out there was the feedback I've gotten from this is unbelievable and ongoing. I mean, as recently as today, received an email. I've received hundreds of emails from people who've lost major amounts of weight doing this. Obviously, I'm not a doctor. We're not scientists, and you know, you should go to your doctor and so forth. One of the mistakes that I made is that if you think about any, and I don't think of this as a diet. I think of it as more of a lifestyle change kind of a thing. When you make this kind of a change or any kind of a lifestyle change like this, you're omitting stuff that you used to have. I mean, it's like becoming a vegetarian. All of a sudden, you know, maybe you're not getting enough protein. You know, there are certain deficiencies to a low carb diet that you have to be careful about, like potassium, for example.
So you take a supplement or something.
Yeah, yeah.
I think Gary Taub said he was quoting a nutritionist at the turn of the century who recommended a cup of beef bouillon at any point if you feel weak.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think red meat actually has some amount of potassium. That might be somehow related. So, and then calcium too is another one, I guess.
So we should
anyway,
say, just as a disclaimer, nobody here knows what the hell we're talking about. So
of course,
do this at your own peril.
But again, I don't think I've ever received as much email from people as I have on this.
No, I think it's great. I think it's and we've received email from a great many people who've lost a lot of weight and who have really regained their health. I mean, it's really pretty cool. Yeah.
So I guess my point is simply that I'm after the debauchery of the holidays, I'm going back on the wagon here. And
yes, me too. Me too.
26 pounds was not even close to what I wanted to lose,
right.
And I hope, you know, so I'll shoot for it again, rejigger things a little bit, and I'll work on that.
I'm willing to guess that that's the #1 New Year's resolution across the board is lose weight. That and go go back to the gym.
Of course.
I guess that's kind of not reconcilable with my New Year's resolution of brewing more beer.
Yeah.
He says, I don't want to depress you, Mary Jo, but Gary Taub says beer is actually the perfect anti-food. It's the worst carbohydrate possible.
Sure.
Just so
you know, there are 2 low-carb beers. One is Michelob Ultra, which is not beer. I believe it is water with yellow food coloring in it. And the other one is actually pretty good if you don't mind, you know, American light-style beers. And it's like this. It's called Budweiser Select. And it's actually, as a beer replacement, if you will, it actually is a beer.
Beer replacement.
Well, if you like beer, I mean,
I don't think Mary Jo's looking for a beer replacement.
No,
I'm going to say this, Mary Jo. I'm going to say this. The people who live the longest are happiest. So you're just being happy, which is good for your health.
There you go. All right. But anyway, getting back to the tech-related stuff.
Oh, yeah. Wait a minute. When was the tech-related stuff? I don't think we're
to the tech-related
There you
stuff.
go. Thank you.
In the process of, I'm working on a book with Raphael, of course, about Windows 8.
Oh,
and
good.
I write every day. I mean, I write news stories, blog posts, I write full-length articles, I write articles that go into our print magazine and into email newsletters and all this stuff. And there's a certain inertia, I think, that occurs when you do the same thing every single day for, in my case, decades even. I mean, many, many years. And it's been interesting over the past year. Mary Jo knows this, and we've talked about it a little bit on the podcast. You know, I talk to people sometimes. You know, what do you do? How do you get work done? You know, what are the tools that you use? And people, of course, are always asking me about that kind of stuff. And for the first time, I've started to really kind of rethink the technologies that I use. You know, as we move to this very mobile and highly connected kind of computing future, it occurs to me that maybe the stuff that I've sort of always taken for granted maybe isn't the correct way of doing things. One of the big changes I made over the past month is I've actually stopped using Microsoft Word, for example.
What? What kind of resolution is that?
Well, because I actually feel like Word is causing me to be a worse writer.
Wow.
In my case, because I write continually, it's almost a crutch because it does this kind of spelling and grammar checking for you. And I've gotten bitten too many times where someone will email me and say, hey, there's this weird grammar error on your site.
Right.
It's gotten so weird, I can actually recognize Word autocorrects in articles that other people write.
Ugh.
You can
So you
tell
mean
what
you're
they
writing
are.
something properly and Word is deciding to change it?
Yeah.
Oy.
This is not a good example, but it's a classic example that anyone who uses Microsoft Word will recognize, which is IT, the word it's, IT apostrophe S or IT without an apostrophe S.
Right.
Many times when you write that in a sentence, Word will underline it in blue. And then you highlight it, and the recommendation is, oh, you don't want the apostrophe. And then you remove the apostrophe, and then it highlights it in red, and it says, oh, no, you want an apostrophe.
I can't make up its mind.
Yeah,
because it doesn't understand context. It doesn't know if it's possessive or a contraction. It can't tell.
Microsoft has a kind of a rich history of these auto-correcting technologies, right? Clippy, obviously, was an example of this. And actually, if you haven't seen it, you know, Brian Hogg is doing his new Satirion series where he's he did a nice little thing on Clippy today. You should look that one up on Twitter. That's fantastic. But you know, autocorrect is available in Microsoft's Visual Studio products. It's available in all the productivity tools. It's everywhere. It's all over the place. And I just think it's getting in the way. You know, on the Mac side.
Now, why don't you just turn it off?
I've actually looked into doing that too. But the problem is, the other part of this resolution is I want things to be simpler. I just want them to be better. And I install computers all the time. I use multiple computers. And I don't want to have to specially configure Microsoft Word every time I install it.
Yeah.
You know, that's like another thing to do. And
a lot of writers don't want Word because Word is really not for writers. It's for business. It's for formatting. It's for writers want something to just type in, the clean screen, nothing in there. Almost looks like a text editor. Is that what you're thinking?
And yes. And the other thing is, nothing I write ever ends up being printed out in a printer.
Right. You don't need to format it.
You know, it's not right. So it occurs to me, you know, 15 years into this, everything I write basically is going to end up electronic. It's going to be on the web essentially, and I should be using tools that are geared toward that. And I've looked at different things, and actually what I don't want to say settled on because I actually really enjoy it, is I've been using Evernote to basically do everything.
Yeah, interesting.
And it works fantastically well.
Interesting.
Now, obviously, I'm a Microsoft
Are you even
guy.
using that for your book too, or just for blog posts?
I right now, as of today, I'm using it for everything.
Even for writing a book. Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
And when I say everything, I even mean beyond writing, because of course Evernote is a great.
I love
organization.
Evernote. Yeah.
I'm tracking the food that I eat, the exercise that I do, the weight that I am at, and so forth. I do stuff like that through Evernote. The interesting thing about Evernote is that because it is primarily a cloud component, which is a key part of this kind of resolution that I'm thinking about, is it's cloud first. You know, I don't have to use Windows Live Mesh or something like Dropbox anymore. It's like another thing I don't have to install and worry about because this thing is already automatically syncing everything I care about between computers into the cloud. You know, so in the past I would create these folder structures. I'd have one for the book. I'd have one for my daily use documents like the WinInfo newsletter or whatever. I would have a work folder for all of my work-related junk. But now I just have all these things in notebooks and Evernote, and I don't have to worry about it. They're automatically on all my computers. So it's kind of like, you know, what I used to use Office for, what I used to use Live Mesh for is all encompassed by this one thing that has a very streamlined and very nice interface and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not saying this is a recommendation for everybody. I mean, I do a certain thing, you know, for a living, and it's a little different than what everyone else does. But I think the resolution, such as it is to really examine what it is you're doing with regards to computing hardware and software and services, and choose the ones that make sense for you, and be really aggressive about it, because you know, you should use the things that make sense. You know, I think there's a certain amount of inertia that we all encompass, you know, that we all, that
I mean, everybody just uses Word's Word. This is the word processor. We just keep using it. But, you know, it's funny because, what happens, I think this happens with every computer user in a lot of different respects, is we put up with minor annoyances. Well, that's a little thing. I'm just going to live with it.
Yeah.
There's like
or
a
not
little.
so minor annoyances, you know.
Yeah, sometimes it's worse. But we put up with them. And we don't fix them
without thinking about why.
Without thinking about it. And what the thing is that cumulatively, those things really are wasting your time, energy, focus. They're draining you of your essential life force, your vital bodily fluids.
Exactly.
And
exactly right. I don't want to spend too much on this because there's a lot of specifics to it. The only two things I just want to add to this are, I know I will get 100 emails now from people who will say, "Why don't you just?"
Right.
And I will actually I have an answer for all of that because I will write about this. I have a lot to write about this process, and I'll be changing things. The other one is that. Just as sort of a general statement, I guess, you know, when you think about resolutions, I just wanted to get into this backup thing. This is sort of historically the one I would always pull out. It is incredibly important that we not have one copy of our data on a hard drive in one computer, and that everything that you do should be based around obviating that or getting around that, you know. And in the past, we used to talk about backup, and then backup became sync, and now actually I think it's a different thing almost. I mean, the sync is in it and backup is part of it, but it's like the key, your data really needs to be in the cloud. Not just sync from PC to PC, but the master copy needs to be in the cloud. And I think that's going to be the big change for this year, you know, that the master copy moved from, in my case, a PC to a home server.
Right.
To the cloud.
The cloud. It's everywhere.
It doesn't mean you can't access it from the PCs. You know, it doesn't mean you can't have a copy of it on a home server, whatever you want to use. But the sort of the way you think about it, or where it's centralized, where the master version is.
Well, that's why Evernote is a really good solution because
Evernote embodies exactly that.
It's on everywhere that you know. I use Evernote. I love Evernote. In fact, so much so I have
you have a coaster.
I have a coaster with the elephant on, but I use but I don't use it like you do. I always think I should use it more for research, taking notes. I use it to like save serial numbers and information.
No, I use it for all kinds of things. I mean, the thing is, the funny thing about Evernote is I keep running into people who love it and advocate for it. And every time a new version comes out, I'll go look at it. And I sort of get it. And I think, well, I have OneNote. You know, what's the big deal? And the thing I never understood, and I think the thing that pulled me away, well, there were two things about OneNote that didn't work for me, although I used it for almost 3 years straight, is one, of course, in the early days, it was PC-based. You know, it was not a cloud solution. And two, it was very specifically a thing you used before you created like a final thing.
Right.
It's like, here's where we're going to collect our thoughts.
Right.
And take notes. And then we'll use this other tool over here to create the final document. And to my mind, I don't understand why those need to be different things. And, you know, for years, I mean, many years, I've been creating Word documents, and I can't even tell you why anymore. My home server must have thousands and thousands.
Right.
Every time I wrote a news article, every time I wrote an editorial, every time I wrote a full-length article, every time I wrote a print, you know, there's a separate Word doc for every single one of those things.
Even blog posts.
Yeah.
And that's what's weird at this point. Now, what about Windows Live Writer? I mean, that's a really nice piece of blogging software. It probably doesn't work with your content management system.
A lot of people will ask me why not Windows Live Writer, and yes, well, it doesn't work with my content management system.
That's why.
But it also doesn't have as its basis a cloud computing storage system.
Right.
Windows Live Writer is based on a PC.
That's true.
You know, you save it to the PC, you publish it to a web server. That's it. I want my data to be centralized in the cloud and then accessible on all of my PCs and devices. You know, and Evernote, and OneNote's good at this too. Not as good as Evernote, but Evernote and OneNote both, I think, have excellent client support. Web, PC, Mac, and every device type you could ever think of, including, by the way, Windows Phone, and a fantastic Windows Phone client.
I'm kind of in the opposite boat from you in a way, Paul, because I've been doing like the absolute simplest thing. I've been using Notepad for like 3 years to write my posts, and I don't save any of my posts. I just write over them. So I don't have like a huge thing.
So how do you upload it, Mary Jo? Does you cut and paste?
I cut and paste it.
Wow.
I know. Yeah. I mean, but my posts are short, you know,
Right.
like I don't really do long posts, so it's pretty, it works pretty
No,
well.
But you don't have a record, like a local record of everything you've ever written.
No. And, well, the web is my record.
Yeah, and that's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
ZDNet backs that up, so you don't have to worry
Yeah.
about that.
So all my stories are on.
I don't trust my company for that stuff.
Yeah,
but I hear what you're saying. Yeah. Okay.
You know, the one thing I do have a lot of, which is kind of hilarious, though, and you know, I don't have a lot of space where I live, but one of my closets is full of boxes of reporters' notebooks full of my notes
Nice.
because I still
So you-
take them on paper.
Oh, so you and this includes now. So you this
Wait
is
a
not
minute.
old stuff.
Do you have one of those little yellow long pads with a spiral and you
Yep.
flip it up? Oh, I love that. That's so cool.
I mean, it's not yellow; it's white. But
It's so quaint, Mary Jo. It's so old-fashioned.
She's
I know.
Lois Lane.
I know.
She's like a real reporter.
I am not on the cutting edge as we talk about on this podcast.
I
often.
think that's great. And what's interesting, you save those notebooks. Now, the truth is, people who ever worked for a daily newspaper, see, this is where Paul and I fall behind. We're not really journalists. We just play one on the radio. But you're a real you need to keep those notes. That for legal purposes. NBC always told us when I worked at NBC, what you are supposed to do that on paper and save those because those are the record. And they also said if you ever do anything off the record or things you don't want, if you want it, do not take notes. You cannot take notes and destroy them. You either took them or you didn't. And if you took them, you must preserve them. So I'm sure you come from
I
that
have
ethos.
about 10 years worth of notebooks
Yeah.
in my closet.
That's
good.
that's a real reporter.
That's kind of a dumb
I
thing
have that stuff
to
electronic.
do, actually. But
Yeah. I guess now they would accept
I
electronic.
keep thinking I should try OneNote. I keep thinking like maybe I'm the person who should be using OneNote, right? Because I could record, interviews as I do them and search the recordings and all
That's
that. But I'm
cool.
like, I don't have
Well, here's
time to
the-
learn it.
why
And
don't
everyone's
you
like, you
use
don't
that
need to
smart-
learn
a
it. You
smart
just
pen?
use it.
Use that smart pen, and then it will automatically
That's
put it in.
yeah. Oh, that's good. You have a
Yeah.
pen that looks like a hot dog, and
Yeah.
you can barely put your hand around it. It doesn't look
My
like a
kids-
hot dog. It looks like a
My kids
knockwurst.
insisted they had to get this pen. for
Oh yeah.
Christmas,
Do they
right?
use that now?
No, because I said to them, "You're never going to use this thing." I said, "No, we'll use it." So they got him. They got it for Christmas. And about a week after Christmas, I asked my daughter. I said, "How's the smart pen going?" She's like, "Eh." I'm like, you write anything smart with it yet?
But if you want, you can
Really,
draw a
really use-
piano on a piece of paper and play it. Da, 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 da. So there you go.
That is exactly what they've done with it. It's $169 right there.
I know. I've been, it's funny because we've reviewed them for years. We've talked about them. I've met these guys, and I'm always tempted to plunk down the credit card because, that would be so cool. But I know in my heart of hearts that's exactly what would happen. 3 days later, it'd be, it's in the drawer.
Yep.
Yep.
And the other weird thing, and I don't know what you call this, but when I write notes in a notebook, I kind of have a mental map of what I wrote,
Yeah.
where it is.
Yeah.
Like I can flip back through my notebook from the past year and go, I know I wrote this, and I think it's on the right-hand page, and I usually can find it.
Wow.
And I know,
You have a
OneNote
kinesthetic
would be way
memory.
easier.
You have a
No,
kinesthetic
by the
memory.
way, I firmly believe what you just said is
Yes.
true. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
I think your memory
I don't
is
know what you
better when
call
it's when it's aided by things like maybe a smell or
Right.
whatever it is. I think that's
It's a
definitely
kinesthetic memory, they call it. It's a
My problem is I can't write. Even today
Yeah.
I had to address an envelope today.
No.
I'm telling you, I had to stretch my hand after it was over. My hand was killing me. I can't.
I
write.
hold a pen
I can
like
type
this.
yeah.
And you're
Yeah,
doing-
exactly. Yeah, no, it's
like Frankenstein.
Yeah,
But that's we're the modern
Yeah.
Joe.
Could you just put your signature on that, Mr. Thurrott? No, I can't.
Yeah, this is my little notebook, if you can see it.
Oh,
This is
that's
like
so-
a typical.
Oh, so it isn't that old reporter's notebook that flips up from the top. You have a regular.
No, those are harder to find, but this is like just a modern adaptation of that.
Right. No, and I think that there are a lot of writers. Neil Stephenson is one. Very famously writes with a fountain pen on paper, who says it's part of the writing process. It's the cognitive process. It flows from my hand, from my brain to my hand to the pen to the paper, and no electronic form can do that. And I believe that.
This is going to have an interesting parallel to my Audible pick today, by the way.
Oh,
We'll
good.
get there.
Yeah, good. I look forward to that. No, this is a funny conversation because I've had this with Dvorak for years, and he's always wanted the clean screen. I remember Gordon. Remember Gordon Eubanks? What was the name of that company?
He wasn't from Intel.
Well, he went through a bunch of things. He was at DR-DOS for a while. Symantec bought his company, but he had a word processor that he created, OneWrite. I can't remember. I'm sure the chat room will remember it, but it was a very simple, clean word processor at a full screen mode. Oh, I know who it was who inspired it. Jerry Pornell. Oh. Jerry Pornell always said, I don't want any distractions. I don't want menus. I want to be able to type. Of course, with Jerry's books are like this big, so you could tell. I just want it to flow from me.
Yeah, a lot of people. I've been kind of hinting at this in various places. A lot of people have recommended things to me that are more common in the Mac side of the world for whatever reason, because those people are so creative. But there are
Scrivener. There are a lot of
word processors where there's nothing on the screen but text.
Yep.
Lets you focus on the text.
Right Room, it's called.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right Room, right? Like the kid from The Shining used to write.
Right Room.
On the wall. Yeah.
I think this is good. Now, you say rethinking everything tech related. That's one, but are you, for instance, thinking about...
that was the big one. So that was the biggest one. I think people, obviously, I'm a Microsoft guy. Windows is always going to be the center of this stuff
OmniWriter
on the desktop and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, hardware-wise, for example, like one of the doofy kind of things that I do is I'm sitting here in front of I have a huge desktop tower under my computer, under my desk. That's connected to this monitor and all the stuff that we're doing. That's how I'm doing the podcast, But then I have this laptop that I carry around everywhere else. And it occurs, Mary Jo, I'm sure, is using the laptop that she uses. That's her laptop, Right. And one of the things I'm going to, I've got it set up behind me. You can't really see it over my shoulder, but I have my ThinkPad set up back there with the same exact keyboard and mouse and a different monitor just for testing purposes and a ThinkPad dock connector thing. And I'm just going to start doing that. I'll always have computers for testing purposes. I can't get around that. But, I do too much where I'm just redoing the same stuff on different computers. And it's really kind of stupid. And then from a software standpoint, I want to have a lot less stuff on my computer. I'm not going to stop installing stuff like Windows Live Essentials. But once you get past the need to install, like Messenger, for example, I use things like I communicate with people on Facebook and Windows Live Messenger. And I'm using a client called Trillion that somebody recommended that does both in one place. That kind of thing, rather than have all this junk running separately. So I'm just trying to be more efficient about what I'm doing, and with the understanding that because I have to rebuild these systems fairly frequently, unfortunately, because I do test software, I want it to be simpler when I do it. I want to be able to come back from it more easily.
I wonder if we're moving. You're in microcosm. What's really happening globally, which is in the post-PC, it's really the post-PC era we're talking about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, think about Windows 8 and about how things could change with that operating system. If all of the apps that I used were Metro-style apps, for example, they would benefit from this notion of being able to blow away a PC and then getting everything back, the apps, the app state and data, and all of your personal documents and whatever else was on there, and your user state, your configuration stuff. That's all going to be possible with Windows 8, and it really is the thing I'm sort of shooting for long term. But in the short term, I'd like to be able to do this, as closely as possible, as much as you can, using Windows 7. There are some big, heavy applications I haven't figured out how to get rid of. Photoshop is one, for example. Unfortunately, because of the nature of what I do, I have to process images that go up onto the web. I do lots of cropping and cutting, and I create promo graphics and so forth.
I didn't realize you did so much to that.
Yeah, I do that all, for my site.
Right.
So that's all there. You
have to have a PC for that. You're not going to do that on a tablet or a smartphone.
Right. But there are other things you can do. For example, I do use Windows Home Server pretty extensively. There's just today, Western Digital announced a NAS device, 6 terabytes of storage, $500. Has an iTunes server on it. That's kind of interesting. You can move off some stuff that maybe, and I use Windows Home Server to kind of a small degree in the sense that it has many capabilities, and I'm only using a few of them. Would this thing make sense as a replacement for Windows Home Server? Maybe. I'm going to look at it. I can tell you that. I mean, I'm going to, like I said, it involves rethinking everything. I think it's the way to look at it.
And Mary Jo, you're just going to keep using your notebooks.
I probably am. I know. I always, that's why, I don't make a lot of resolutions about tech I'm going to use because in the end, usually am so busy doing my job, I just don't have time to even think about like, oh, should I try this? Should I try that?
It takes time thinking about it, doesn't it? Yeah.
It does.
Well, right.
It does.
We do. People, I think, might look at us and think we do the same thing, but in many ways, Mary Jo and I do different things. And unfortunately, a lot of what I do involves this stuff, talking about it and writing about it.
Well, but I do think it's good, and I think this is maybe the message here, is that this is the beginning of the year. You need to take some time at some point, maybe, to take a step back and think about process instead of letting inertia just kind of drive you in the same direction forever. Because I do think that there are things that we do, for no apparent reason with our technology, that if we thought about it, we might say, oh,
Microsoft Outlook is a good example.
Yeah, Outlook. Well, a lot of people are moving to webmail, and I think Outlook is probably the buggy whip that's spurring them over.
Because, not too long ago, 4 or 5 years ago, certainly, webmail was a joke. Webmail was where you went when you were an idiot and you didn't know any better.
Right. It's all your ISP.
I would argue today that webmail is way better than any email application. Yeah. And it has that exact thing I was talking about, where your data is in the cloud, and it doesn't matter where you access it from. It's always the same.
So I think that's a good goal, which is one copy in the cloud accessible via a variety of devices. As we carry more and more powerful phones and tablets and laptops and stuff, we don't want a copy on each of these devices. We do, but we want a central store that everything comes from. And that solves your third issue, backup, because there is a copy in this cloud already, right? Do you still have to back it up?
Yeah, the backup one I throw in because I feel like I am obligated to do so, but I also think some people aren't going to be able to do this for various reasons. Some people live in places where they have metered internet access and so forth, but the important bit is you can't have your crucial data on one hard drive and one PC. It has to be replicated. It should ideally be replicated both within your own house, say to another PC or to a server, using something like Live Mesh or whatever. Or it should be replicated, or it should be replicated to the cloud when possible, using backup solutions like CrashPlan or sync solutions like Dropbox or Live Mesh does this to some degree and so forth. So
the problem with that is we're in the infancy of these solutions, so they're not exactly smooth and easy. I look at iCloud and SkyDrive as very good examples. These are big companies who presumably spent a lot of time thinking about how to implement. In both cases, they're kind of not really there yet.
No, it's true. And I have terabytes of data, ridiculous amounts of data. I'm not a normal person.
Right.
So I think
that's why you used Windows Home Server. That's why it was a perfect
solution. I think for most people,
and NAS is
what I've just described would probably not be a problem.
Right.
There's no way I'm going to take all of the data that I have on my home server and put it in the cloud as my, it doesn't make sense.
Well, but you say that, but I would think more and more people are like you and me, where we have a ton of data, where we've been saving songs and movies, and it's starting to be, this giant terabytes.
Well, but maybe even that should be part of our resolution, is not having that stuff. One of there's a very freeing aspect to something like you talk about how we're on the cusp or the beginning of this, and we are, but you can see it happening. iTunes, iCloud and the iTunes, what do you call it? iTunes match service, for example. Very interesting because it puts your collection up in the cloud, right? And if you buy stuff, and I'm not saying you should buy stuff from Apple, but if you buy TV shows today, and you have to think movies are coming, now all of a sudden they're always available to you. Zune does that already with movies. Amazon does it as well, where you can stream them from any device. Think about it. Like, if you, for some reason, had to buy a movie electronically from Amazon or Zune or Apple, or rented a movie, why would you need it to be on a PC, other than the fact that maybe you're going to fly on a plane or something, right?
Right.
If you're a typical American in this case, or a typical Western European or whatever, wouldn't it just be better to buy it and not download it, and then just watch it on your Apple TV out in the living room or on your laptop in your bedroom?
Well, I think that's why physical media is starting to fade away. I think that is. Yeah. We don't, if you care about quality, you still want physical media, but for most people, the convenience of not storing this stuff outweighs it.
There's no doubt that a Blu-ray version of Avatar is
always
going
to look better. It's always, but do people care?
I mean, seriously, that much better than the HD version that you can buy from iTunes.
Right.
It's not that much better.
Well, you're going to get. I agree with you, and you're going to get a battle on that one. And for those people for whom it cares, go ahead, buy your silly Blu-rays. Enjoy them while you got them, because it ain't going to last much longer. And look what happened with
your kids will look at that disc in the same way that my kids look at a cassette deck, or an album, and they have no idea what that thing. You know, there's a beautiful thing that was on Facebook. It probably made the rounds on the internet. It was a picture of a pencil and a cassette.
I love that.
Music.
Yes.
Remember? And it said,
it's an age
not only
test.
do our kids not know what these two things are, they don't know how they relate to each other.
What do they have in common?
You would use the pencil to rewind the tape, remember?
It's an age test. Yep.
Yeah.
You know, and it's absolutely true. If I show that to my kids, they go, I don't know what. You write on the label? I don't know what. What is that thing?
I think my son believes the world was literally black and white when I was a child.
From his point of view, it was.
Yep.
It was. Mary Jo, anything to say? Do you, besides making more beer, do you have anything else?
I'm sorry I killed an hour of your life.
I have no other goals except that. No.
More beer. So Augusta is a chocolate maple porter. Wow.
Yes.
What else are you working on? That sounds so good.
I'm now working on a brown ale brewed with chestnuts that's going to have a code name beginning with the letter B.
Boston?
I don't know. I haven't decided
Birmingham?
Yet.
Boston.
There's so many.
Boston.
Yeah.
Boston.
No, I did have one other thing I wanted to say about year ahead.
Yes.
So I think it's actually our next item, perhaps. But so the one thing I do think about a lot, even though I don't think a lot about what technologies I'm going to change, I do think a lot about where I'm going to go in the coming year and kind of start planning already. You know, where am I going to be? What's going to be important going forward? You know, we talked about next week's the Consumer Electronics Show where Steve Ballmer is going to keynote, but there's a lot of other Microsoft shows that are already on my calendar.
Which is why they're not going to CES ever again.
Exactly.
Right.
Maybe I should like run through what some of these are, because I get a lot of questions like, do you know, are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? So I thought it might be helpful to people, just kind of get them thinking ahead.
Good.
A little planning.
Good.
Scheduling kind of thing.
So are they going to do Build again?
That's a great question that I get a lot, and we don't know the answer to that yet.
Because I think that was a great conference.
That was a great conference, and I bet they are, but I know Ed Botnai, Ed, who works over at ZDNet with me, he thinks they're not going to do a Build, but neither of us know for sure because, you know, Microsoft hasn't said yet. If they did one, I would think fall would be a really good time to do one again like they did last year. You know, that they did it in September last year. But we don't know.
I don't think people get what's happening. I think they need more information. I think they need more face.
They should do a Build in March.
Yeah, they should do a Build quarterly.
Right after the beta. Yeah. Well, so I can tell you what isn't happening next year. Another one that we know is not happening is the Mix Conference.
Wow.
I'm like 99% sure that's not going to happen. And that was their big design conference that they used to have every March in Las Vegas. And I'm pretty sure, since we haven't heard a word about it and no one's got any proposals going, no one's been invited to speak, that I can say almost definitively we're not going to see a Mix this year. So it'd be a good time for a Build. You're right. That would be a great time. But I don't know. I think it's also too late at this point if they haven't already planned for Build to put it in March. But we do have, what else? I'm looking at my own calendar that I have. Mobile World Congress in late February and March in Barcelona.
That'll be a Windows Phone. I mean, it's all phones, but do you think there'll be a lot of Windows Phone stuff there? Nokia.
I do.
Nokia really participates in that conference.
Yep. I think it'll be big. Maybe they'll talk about Tango, you know, which is the next version of Windows Phone for the overseas market primarily. Then they're always big at the South by Southwest show, which is March in Austin.
Are they?
Usually the Bing team usually has a very big presence there.
Sure.
Yep. And then a few other shows you all might want to know about. Convergence, if you're into ERP and CRM, as I know Leo is personally.
God, I love that stuff.
I knew it. March in Houston. You'll want to be there.
I want a chocolate maple ERP.
There you go.
Yeah.
What else? Microsoft Management Summit in Las Vegas in April is going to be big. This is where they're going to probably launch the System Center product. E3, they always have a big presence around Xbox and new Xbox games. And then we're already up to June, TechEd, which is going to be in Orlando this year. That's their big show for IT pros and developers. And then they're going to have a TechEd Europe this year as well in Amsterdam, which I would love to go to. I've never been to Amsterdam.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, that would be cool. June also. Yep. And then my last big show that is definitely on my calendar is the Worldwide Partner Conference, which they're having in Toronto in July. And I love Toronto too, so I'm looking forward to that. Well, yeah, so if you're thinking ahead, think about all these fun places we're going to get to go this year, like Orlando, Paul. I know Paul will.
Disney World. All about Microsoft.com. You've got a list of all of these.
May or June for TechEd?
TechEd is
June 11th through 14th.
June 11th.
I'm looking at Mary Jo's post. It's all here if you need it. And
It's
then
all
TechEd
there, guys.
Europe is June
I'd rather
25th,
go
29th.
there.
Yeah, go to that
TechEd
one.
Europe instead.
Yeah.
I know. I would love to go to that one.
It's usually at the end of the year. That's kind of, I thought, right? Europe one?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
great.
usually November. Yep.
Now, of all of these, we will be at Consumer Electronics Show. Of course, that's next week. We might go to Mobile World Congress. We were thinking about that. South by Southwest, I actually took off our agenda because it's really just a big party.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've never understood the point of that show.
I mean, it's a fun show, but I don't know if we need to cover it. Let's put it that way.
It makes no sense from a...
It's just fun. E3,
Right.
we will for sure be at E3 in June in Los Angeles. And if they do a build, I know you guys would go to that, so we'd have that covered. So, yeah, good. All right. Interesting.
Indeed.
Indeed. So that's good. Mary Jo's Travel Planner. Just so you know, and you go to allaboutmicrosoft.com. She's got a post there with everything.
Well, you're sort of resolving to discuss this stuff, so it's like a resolution.
She's resolved.
Yeah, exactly.
She's got high resolution.
Oh, man. When I just noticed on Twitter, somebody said, if you come to Amsterdam, I'll take you to the Heineken factory. There we go.
I think it's a done deal. But not just Heineken. Aren't there a lot of great class? Isn't Amstel and Stella Artois? Is that nuts? Belgium.
All the good beers from Belgium, but that's fine. It's all available, right?
Yeah.
I'm glad the listeners are paying attention to my resolutions.
I'm going to Amsterdam to get some Heidi's. So let's talk about CES is next week. There are a couple of things three things I think Microsoft is expected to show quite a bit of. Of course, Windows Phone. We're looking forward to we will be at the Nokia press conference. I'm hoping they're going to show the Lumia whatever for the U.S. We expect lots of at least announcements of Windows 8 tablets. I don't know if there'll be anything to show, but Ultrabooks I know will be everywhere.
Yeah, I think people misunderstand how big this is going to be. There's
have they sold well so far? I mean, there's Lenovo, there's Acer.
There's really only 3 or 4
Asus.
major Ultrabooks out right now. Right. But as of this coming week, there will be hundreds coming into the market over the next. It's not all going to happen immediately. People also tend to forget that CES is a time for announcing things, including the Intel chipset that will make this stuff possible. So it's going to be February, March, April before the Ultrabooks actually hit the market. The second generation.
Right.
Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And if I just did this the other night, I was in a Best Buy and they had 3 Ultrabooks right next to each other on a table, and it's the same experience you get with the MacBook Air, where you cannot believe how thin and light they are. Beautiful. You pick them up by the tip, with the tips of your fingers, and they lift off the desk, and it's like, oh man, this is awesome. And this is going to be a big deal. I think it's healthy for customers for obvious reasons, but I think it's going to be healthy for consumers as well, because these, unlike netbooks, are real full-featured computer, or I should say full-speed computers. And I think are going to be a much better deal, even though they're technically, obviously they're going to be more expensive. But I think these are going to be much better computers than what we've seen with netbooks. So I expect that this is going to be a big year for
we had the Lenovo here, and we were a little underwhelmed with it.
Yeah, but again, previous gen
early
idea. It's an idea pad.
Yeah,
not a,
right. So it was not really a true Ultrabook.
No, it's an Ultrabook, but I mean, remember when people also, again, they forget. When Intel announced their notion of the Ultrabook, which everyone kind of poo-pooed at first, they talked about how there were going to be 3 generations of these things, and that the first gen was going to hit last year, which it did later than expected, and fewer computers than expected. The second gen would hit in the early part of next year. And then the third gen, which is the one I'm really excited about, is where the chipset gets small enough that more and more PC makers are going to start putting the guts of the computer behind the screen, not under the keyboard. So you can use that thing in a dual-use configuration where it's a tablet running Windows 8, most likely based on the timing, and you've got all the touch interfaces and everything, but then you plug it into that keyboard base, kind of like you see it like today at an Asus Transformer type machine.
Right.
That thing will have additional battery to it, but not the componentry. So you get that full laptop experience, or you can get the iPad-style, whatever you want to call it, media tablet type experience.
So I have an email from Intel saying, as you make your plans for CES, I wanted to reach out on behalf of Intel to let you know what we will showcase in Las Vegas next week. 2 of the key themes for Intel at CES will be the evolution of personal computing, which Intel is fueling with the next category, the new category of Ultrabook devices, and the way Intel processors can be embedded into technologies to create intelligent systems. They will have second-generation Intel Core processor-powered Ultrabook devices. Acer, Asus, HP, Lenovo, LG, Samsung, and Toshiba, 15 devices. There will be 60 designs in the pipeline for 2012 at least.
Yeah,
so you're absolutely right. They're also going to show Lego augmented reality, so that's what I'm there for. By the way, did you mention?
Yeah, I was. There's a stat out that we wrote about over on ZDNet. A firm called IHS iSupply is saying 43% of notebook shipments by 2015 will be Ultrabooks.
That makes sense.
That's huge, right?
As anybody who's used a MacBook Air for any length of time, and I know, Paul, you have, it just it transforms your opinion of what a notebook should be.
Yep.
It's all I use now. I just love them.
It makes everything else look like one of those East German tanks.
Yeah, it's like, why would I want to carry that around?
Yeah. Yep.
I remember when Windows 7 came out, I think I've said this before, the machine I wanted, basically, although this term didn't exist then, was an Ultrabook.
Right.
Because I kept saying, I want a thin, light PC that runs Windows 7. Where are they?
Yep.
And the PC I ended up with, which is an Asus, it's good. It was pretty close to what an Ultrabook was. But, the price had to come down. For what I have, I paid a lot of money. It was over $1,000. Now it probably would be like $700.
It's definitely an Ultrabook predecessor. It's that same kind of idea.
We've seen thin, light notebooks for years, but the key here is power, right? Not sacrificing.
It's weight and thinness. It's battery life. I mean, I think one of the areas that these first-gen machines are really falling short on is battery life. A lot of them get 4 to 5 hours of battery life, and
we want more.
That's not enough.
We need 10.
Even the MacBook Air, kind of, the 11-inch MacBook Air is in the 4 to 5 hour range. It's it's okay.
Yeah,
but that needs to.
I love 8 to 10.
8 to 10, exactly.
Are we going to see that? Is that what we will see?
Yeah, I mean, actually today Lenovo announced their first ever ThinkPad Ultrabook ahead of CS, and I got a preview of that in December. That's a very, very interesting device. Lenovo also sells a ThinkPad X1 that's been on the market since last year, and that's coming in a kind of a so-called hybrid version. But the nice thing about that is that machine, which is very thin and very close to being an Ultrabook already, you can plug on a battery slice, and then it gets up to 10 hours of battery life.
But see, then it's not an Ultrabook because it's like got a big battery.
Yeah, but it gives you that option. I think that's important. When you're maybe putzing around the house or commuting to work, maybe the regular laptop is fine by itself. But then if you want to go on a trip cross country, whatever, you want to bring the battery.
Right.
I think it's nice to have the option. So.
And Apple, of course, is not going to sit still on this. The rumors are strong that they're going to do basically convert their whole line into these ultra thins.
I expect Apple to sit still and do nothing, Leo. So I think Windows is nicely positioned.
Larry Dignan has a good article which you point to in your links here on ZDNet on the 4 things that'll make or break the Ultrabook category. You agree? I presume you agree with this. He says Windows 8 needs to be huge, because that'll be a driver. People in the Windows side traditionally don't buy new computers unless there's a new operating system to go along with it. Ultrabooks will have to inspire consumer and corporate upgrades.
I know. That's a challenge right there.
Yeah.
I would like to see, you know what we need is Ultrabooks that are not just a MacBook Air running Windows.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And I think that there needs to be more going on there. And that's that notion that this thing could be a dual-use machine as a tablet and a PC is something that maybe the Windows side of the fence could get right. The problem is Apple is, like you said, not sitting still, and they could right now be very well working on something like that combines iOS and macOS 10 perhaps, which is one of the things I sort of believe will happen, or it maybe even provides both. You know, essentially an iPad latched onto a keyboard that becomes a MacBook Air. So these things aren't sitting still. But I'd like to see the PC industry not just copy Apple. You know, I'd like to see you know, some innovative designs of their own. I'd like to see the thing that makes the PC industry great, the sort of diversity of the devices, where we have essentially, you know, 11.6 type inch devices all the way up to 15 inches or bigger. You know, why not have some giant slab of a laptop that's only, you know, 20 millimeters thin or whatever the thing is, you know, where you get a 15 or 16 inch screen on the thing. That would be wonderful.
Yeah. We can dream.
It's all I ever do.
Dream.
Yeah, for me, of all these features that really need to be there, battery life. Battery life is the biggest by far.
In fact, power may not even be that important. For years, the MacBook Airs were way underpowered, and people still loved them. And
Well,
SSD makes part of that difference.
And there's a really weird trend in computing now, which is kind of unprecedented, where Windows 7 came out and had the same exact hardware requirements as Vista, which is even better than it sounds, because, of course, the hardware had improved dramatically over that 4-year time period. And now Windows 8 will even have slightly less hardware requirements. There's a very subtle thing, even just in the display of the arrow glass effect in Windows 8, if you're using the desktop, where it's not actually as reliant on 3D hardware as the original version was. Thus, it doesn't suck up as much power. Thus, it's actually friendlier to the battery. And so, you know, we kind of need less computing power in many ways than we did just a few years ago as well. And so that can benefit all of these things as well, the perceived performance as well as the battery life.
Right. Do we know any more about Windows 8? I see you say we have here Windows 8 refresh and reset features. I thought the features were set.
No.
But you can still write 3,000 words about them, even if
they just as we were talking, posted another 3,000+ words.
Is this Steven Sinofsky writing all this stuff, or
no? It's his little minions. But they just published something about something called storage spaces, which is basically the logical, if not technical, successor of that drive extender technology from Windows Home Server that was canceled in the most recent version. It's a way to combine storage from different hardware disks into a single pool of storage. I haven't read the post yet, obviously, because we're recording the podcast, but I saw that it was up and it looks great. So that's something.
Do you think that means no more home server? Like this is the end of home server?
Yeah, so this came up today on Twitter, and it's one of those things I don't like to think about, but yeah, I do.
I mean, because they're kind of providing the one thing everybody really wanted that isn't in the current version of home server, and now it's going to be in Windows 8, right?
Well, you know, there are other things in Windows Home Server. Somebody pointed out today, for example, that centralized PC backup, for example, is kind of a really neat thing that's in Windows Home Server, to which I responded, yeah, but how many people have 10 computers at home? I think that there's I'm just guessing, you know, just throwing it like kind of a guessing here, but you could almost make a case for a small business server type product that was essentially a combination of home server and small business server essentials, where you at setup said, do you want a domain, yes or no? Do you want media sharing, yes or no? And guess what? That's both products right there. So you could kind of create your own, it would just be one product. You know, that's one way to handle that, by the way. So I don't know. I mean, my gut feeling is that Windows Home Server has run its course. And it was cool. It's great. I use it. Like, I use it every day. But it's, you know, we're moving to the cloud, like I've been talking about. I mean, it's kind of, you know, I think for most people, this is not necessary anymore. Leo and I, probably 2 years ago, talked about my belief years ago that I would have a closet full of storage. That's how I imagined it. It would be like this rack-mounted storage space I sort of imagined that the home of the future would have to have storage. Very short-sighted because the home of the future will be connected to the internet. And,
well, it's so easy to do. I mean, I remember 20 or 15 or 10 years ago on the radio show telling people, oh, make sure whenever you open the walls, you put Cat 5 cable in there because you're for sure going to want to network your house with wire, and then Wi-Fi comes along and all bets are off. And so that's what happens. This is how things change.
The Cat 5 is nice for doing wireless repeaters. And that's pretty much it.
Well, I don't think you would regret it if you had done it, but it was kind of obviated by the fact that everybody went wireless. And I think the same things happened. The accessible, cheap cloud storage and wide distribution of broadband has made it kind of unnecessary to have a storage closet. Yes?
But back to reset and refresh. Can we talk about that again for a second?
Are we resetting and refreshing?
We are.
Every day, Leo.
Because I was interested. Paul called this, I saw on his blog or Twitter perhaps, his favorite Windows 8 feature, I believe. Didn't you, Paul?
I did.
So, yeah, what's cool about it, I remember when all this information about Windows 8 first leaked way back in 2010, when we first got our first big leak on it, one of the things was a one-button push reset. And everybody was really intrigued by this. Like,
steady
wow,
state.
is it going to... Yeah,
No.
Well, like, but was it going to preserve your data, apps? Remember, that was a big,
It's better,
like,
right,
what is it going to do?
Yeah.
But doesn't
Yeah, it does all that and more.
Microsoft Steady State, which they killed, did that, didn't it?
Well, in the same way that Steady State was to Windows 8 as Windows Home Server Drive Extender is to Windows 8, right? This is maybe a simpler, better way of doing it.
Right.
Maybe
But it's the same idea, which is it's a one-button reset to the factory state.
But Steady State was very specifically aimed at like a lab type situation or a school,
Right.
where you didn't want anyone to destroy a PC configuration in a lab. This feature, I guess they're two separate features, are more aimed at this notion of not PC rot so much. I actually think that's been kind of eliminated, but rather maybe you make a mistake and you've installed something bad, or you just want to clean up your system for some reason. I mean, it lets you blow away and get back to factory fresh if that's what you want, or blow away and return with all of your configuration intact, all of your documents, all of your Metro-style apps, all that stuff.
That's really great. I would love to have
do so in minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's coming.
Because, I mean, how many times when you get a virus especially, how many times do you say, well, you need to reinstall Windows? Now, I would hope that the store that you're reinstalling from is right protected, that bad guys can't modify it, that the virus can't insert itself into that, so that you really do get a fresh, clean
Well, see, there's some stuff we don't know about this. I actually, I was kind of looking through their post about this. I wonder if there isn't going to be a Windows Live aspect to this, because part of the deal with Windows 8, I think, is going to be this notion of user profiles, in the cloud, sort of like Xbox is doing now.
Right.
And that maybe that will be part of that as well. So
this sounds really good. This sounds like, for somebody like me, the single. I mean, this is all you would need to put in Windows 8 to make me want to buy it. You can forget everything else.
Wow.
Well, so that's what I mean.
This is huge.
This to me is the big feature.
Yeah.
The cynical people on Twitter, and I know you're surprised to hear that.
No.
Who say, "Oh, this is your favorite feature," like they're fixing something that shouldn't have been broken in the first place.
Well, it wouldn't have been bad had they had this in for a while.
Yeah, okay. It wouldn't have been bad if we had flying cars too. But I'm just, I'm just happy it's coming.
Yes.
It's just good news.
Can't you people just be happy?
What else I thought was interesting in that post was there were a couple little, like, they weren't major tidbits in any way, but little hints about, and we've got this coming in the upcoming beta, and we know the beta is coming out by the end of February. So they were kind of alluding to some of the things that are not in the developer preview around reset, refresh, and the UI for that, and the new thorough option that's in there, which really lets you scrub the data and all that. So there's little hints in there too if you want to go through the 3,500 words or whatever it is to pick up. They're long. My article was shorter than their article.
Yeah, so was mine. I think I told you back in probably September, October timeframe, I had brought out the Windows 8 tablet to a user group to talk about it. And as the guy was introducing me, I realized I had screwed the tablet up earlier in the day, and I didn't have access to my home network, so I couldn't get the thing back that would fix it. And it's a long story, but I had re-enabled the start menu just to see if the tool worked. But what I wanted to show them now was a start screen, which I could no longer get to. So as he's talking, I realized this mistake, and you get that stab of fear in your heart, you know. And so I used this feature to blow away the machine and put it back to factory fresh. So I just started talking, and then, you know, 5
While
minutes
you're
went
talking.
by. Yep, and 5 minutes goes by, and the thing came up.
Awesome.
No problem. And I just, there you go.
We used to do that on Tech TV with the screensavers, because when a machine crashed irrevocably, and we knew we had a 3-minute commercial break, we needed a way to, you know, and so that's what we used Ghost for.
Yeah.
So we would always restore it, and we could restore it within a commercial. I think that's a wonderful
your
thing.
grandmother could use.
No,
right?
and this should be built into Windows. This is great.
Yeah.
And the idea is it happens fast too.
It's very fast.
So a few minutes later, and they give you it's like you have a new system. It's great. I like it. And what do you think? When will the next beta be?
Well, they've said there's only going to be one beta, and the one beta is going to be by the end of February. They've actually said in late February, but I know based on previous promises like that, I would guess it could be earlier than the end of February. I think end of February is the drop dead. Like, you will have the beta before the end of February. What do you think, Paul? I think maybe earlier.
There were rumors that they've already finalized it, which makes sense.
I know.
From a timing perspective.
Can't you always be? You never could go wrong saying, though, that a pre-release will be late.
Unless you're Microsoft, it'll never be late because they always give you the last date these days.
They don't say stuff unless they're ready. Right. I mean, when they said February, they knew they could hit February. So,
all right.
Yeah, them delivering it a little early would be entirely in keeping with the way they do things.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
Let's get some updates on Windows Phone 7.
Yeah. So this one I feel a little bit bad about because I think what I wrote was misunderstood. There was a post yesterday or the other day, 2 days ago, whatever it was, on Beta News, where they said that Microsoft and Nokia were going to spend $100 million next year marketing the Ace, the high-end version of Windows Phone.
Right.
Now, I have some internal Microsoft documentation that says something different. And I don't know what I would have done about that one report, but the problem is, the way you were talking about bloggers and everything. I mean, the way the world works now is that becomes a fact.
Right.
It's not this guy said that according to a source that this was going to happen. It becomes this is what's happening. And so I decided to write an article. I described that report as somewhat inaccurate. That was the exact quote I used. And my bigger concern was about the Me Too bloggers, that everyone just sort of parrots this information as if it were a fact. Unfortunately, the guy who wrote that article, I think, was a little upset with the way that I characterized his post. And I feel bad about that. And I offered to show him the evidence I had to the contrary, but he ignored that request. So I'll just tell you what it says. And that is that in the United States, on AT&T only, in the first half of 2012 only, not the entire year, Microsoft and Nokia will spend well over $100 million promoting just that one phone.
But that isn't even that much nowadays.
Right.
I'm just right. Listen, and the point here is not I'm right, he's wrong, or maybe he's right and I'm wrong. Mary Jo has seen this information as well. I just have what is clearly actually Microsoft documentation. It's not a buddy of mine from Microsoft saying it. It's not I literally have an incredibly extensive set of documentation from Microsoft about their entire fiscal year 2012 marketing plan for Windows Phone in the United States only. When you add in what Microsoft is doing with Samsung and HTC, again, also only on AT&T and only in the first half of 2012, not the full year, it's much closer to $200 million.
That sounds better. That sounds more appropriate.
Yeah, that doesn't involve all the other phones. And by the way, it doesn't involve all the other carriers. And it doesn't involve the other countries because these phones are going to be sold and marketed in many, many countries. So I would have to say that the overall marketing budget that they're plotting just for the first half of next year is probably close to like $400 million or whatever. I'm just guessing, but I'm saying it's way the heck out there. So I think the one thing I just wanted to communicate, I'm sorry, wanted to say, I feel bad for... It's Ed Oswald at Beta News. I did not mean to disparage him. In fact, again, the only thing I wrote about what he wrote was that it was somewhat inaccurate. And if you consider that 100 million is what he wrote, and the actual figure is more like 130 million. 100 million is somewhat inaccurate. I thought that was a fairly accurate way to describe it. So I'm sorry if I offended, but that was where that came from.
And you know, the part of Paul's post that I focused on, because I find this even more interesting than like what's the total amount being spent, because we all know they've got to spend a lot of money. They're in a really bad place right now with market share. But Paul had another statement that said that Microsoft finally is going to go out and start doing these commissions to the people in the retail stores called spiffs, you know, spiffs, which are payments you make to retail store employees. You give them incentives. You know, if you sell 5 phones, we'll start giving you $10 a phone.
This addresses that problem they've had, which is you go into an AT&T store and you say you want the Titan, and they go, no, you don't.
Yes.
So do you know?
So they're going to start paying $10 to $15 per handset.
Well,
I mean, depending on how many.
I don't know.
You know?
I don't
Everybody
know.
does it. Everybody does
it.
Yeah, it's common. Like it's very, very common.
On Twitter and, okay, I don't know.
Let me ask the chat room, if anybody works at an AT&T store, I know we have some listeners who do you get paid to push a phone?
Does Nokia offer you a little something under the table?
Big Bry says $10 to $15 if you push an iPhone purchase.
Okay, so that's the exact amount that they're going to pay as well for a Windows Phone.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, they're also talking about, you know, hey, if you sell this many phones, maybe you get a free Xbox, or maybe we'll give you a car stereo, or maybe we'll throw some free pizzas into every store on Friday. So,
how would you like a free year of beer delivery? How does that sound?
Okay, free beer delivery. I'm
free
there.
Beer, yeah.
It's like a mafia deal. Like, you know, we could throw in a nice Cadillac. I don't know.
But this, you know, the part to me that was the most interesting was, why weren't they doing this before? Tell me they didn't know everybody else was doing it. Of course they knew. They do a ton of research, right? They go into stores and pose as customers. I mean, they know how this works.
I honestly believe, you know, it kills me. The information has come out recently, partly through Charlie Kindle, where he talks about the sort of thing like we would not have really known on the outside, which is that by doing the right thing with Windows Phone, in this case I'm referring specifically to not allowing OEMs, meaning the hardware makers, as well as the wireless carriers, to customize these things with their own UIs and change things dramatically. Like that there has to be an experience that is consistent across all of the devices so that you know you're looking at a Windows Phone, not just some device. That was the right thing to do for customers. It turns out those other people, the people that are actually going to sell these things and make them, hate that. and that was the pushback that they got, you know, and that Microsoft was going to try to control the updating scenario. They kind of met them halfway on that one, obviously, but when you compare it to what's going on with Android right now, we know they don't, like, I think it's like 0.5% of all Android phones right now have the latest version of the OS.
Right.
Meanwhile, something like 90+% of Windows Phone users have the latest release. I mean,
to be fair, Ice Cream Sandwich just came out. Now, come on.
Okay, but in the same time period after Windows Phone 7.5 was released, it was between 70 and 80% of Windows phones had the update. So it is literally a much better situation for users. But unfortunately, Microsoft doesn't really deal with users directly, do they? They deal with these other people who are the ones that make the devices and then sell them to consumers. And those people like kind of hate Microsoft for that. And I actually think that the reason, if you want to, just speaking generally, when they came out with Windows Phone about a year and a half ago, or 15 months ago, or whatever that was, that I literally believe that these guys thought that we have such a superior system that it's going to sell itself.
Right.
And that's just how this will happen. That they started over, they did the right thing, they came out with a better product. This will happen, and it didn't. You know, and I think it was shocking to them. So I'm glad that I agree with you that that's naive, by the way. But whatever the reason, they're finally going to start doing it, and they'll have a lot more details about it. I didn't want to blow away the whole thing, but there's more coming. There's a lot more information.
You want to talk about Ziggy?
I do. Paul does not. I do.
What is Ziggy?
Ziggy is kind of like Siri, right? It's going to let people speak into their Windows phones and say, "Get me the weather in New York."
Wow.
Ziggy.
Ask Ziggy the
And then
Windows
Ziggy
Phone
will say,
answer.
"Do you want me to call you weather in New York from now on?"
Daniel Rubino here with WPCentral.com, and I want to give you the Windows Phone answer to the iPhone's Siri. Yes, we have one. It's called Ask Ziggy, a completely free app in the marketplace that is also ad-free. The app is very impressive.
Have you guys tried this? Or is it not out yet?
I have not.
I don't like
it's out,
Siri,
right?
so I'm not going to use this. But
I'll tell you right now, ugly.
yeah, well, I mean,
It's what's funny? It's getting decent. Like as much as people are making fun of it, it's also getting fairly decent reviews. I think I read something. They pulled it from the store.
What
I
is
don't
the
remember
square
that.
root of 100?
It's free, and it was developed by one guy,
That's cool.
which is crazy. Yeah.
The
And it-
square root of 100 is 10. A square root is a number that, when multiplied by itself,
Wow.
equals a given number.
It's Siri's voice. That's what's really interesting. Apple doesn't own that voice. That's a voice you can
Of course, I
buy.
can hit cancel and it'll stop reading to me. Also, if you hit this little top section here, it actually will go to the web and fetch you web results in case you want more information. It also does that if it doesn't have a straight answer to give you and it can't read it back. So that's really useful. You can also do things like...
oh, man, this is
Get
like
the
a
weather
sign of the
in New York
apocalypse. I mean,
Yeah.
seriously, we're going to be like a world of people. It's bad enough we have our heads stuck in our stupid phones. We're going to be like, now we're going to be talking to these things like,
This looks like, I have to be honest with you, this is a far cry from Siri because really what it's doing is web searches.
Right.
And it doesn't seem to be natural language recognition. It's not parsing the sentence. It's just taking whatever you say, transcribing it, and then doing a web search on it. And if you're lucky, they'll be your result.
There's a more endemic flaw to this program, and I'm referring, of course, to its name.
Ziggy.
And
You don't like the name.
I like the name.
It's the Clippy of...
Ziggy Clippy.
Yada.
by the way,
it's-
also, while we were recording, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's impressive to me that one guy developed
Yeah,
this.
no, that's neat.
No, it is impressive. And maybe speaks to how awesome it is to develop for Windows Phone because you can do something like this very easily and quickly in Windows Phone.
Yeah.
Your keyboard fix note in there has been addressed. So Microsoft has now posted what is available in the latest update to Windows Phone, which includes a fix for an issue to prevent the keyboard from disappearing during typing.
Ooh.
That seems like a pretty...
Remember that? Yeah.
Ooh.
I've not seen this. Something tells me I would remember if I had.
Yeah. So a lot of people are having this, and I've had it occasionally, which is funny. You're in the middle of typing, and all of a sudden your keyboard just goes away, and then you have to bring it back up. So this fixes that. It fixes a couple other things: Google Mail syncing. The location. Remember, the whole thing is Microsoft disclosing your Wi-Fi location. This adds a check-in where you have to actually tell them, "I want you to monitor my location." Some security stuff is in here. So they're calling it a service release, and it started to go out in Italy already on Vodafone. That was the first report of it, and I've asked them, when is it going to come to the U.S. and which carriers and what's the timetable, and they said they don't have, or they're not willing to share that information at this time, but it's coming.
This is Noto all over again.
Oh, yikes.
How widespread is the problem? I mean, have you heard howls of pain from all over that people are having this problem?
I heard quite a few, and there's a lot in the forums.
Hasn't happened to me.
Yeah,
Has it happened to you guys? No, apparently not.
No.
It started happening to me after I wrote "It Never Happened to Me." Then suddenly it started happening.
That's awesome. You thought Windows Phone didn't have natural language capability.
It understands not only what you're thinking,
but it understands the intent of what you're
yes,
saying.
deeply. It understands your deepest fears.
Yes.
And
But
there's
yeah, so it's coming.
and then I see here there was a rumor that Microsoft may not let homebrew apps appear on the.
Oh, that's also. So that's Rafael Rivera and.
What is a homebrew app? You mean an app that you don't release to the store, you write yourself?
Yeah, so the Chevron folks, which is Long Zhang and Rafael Rivera and Chris, I just forgot his last name. Chris
Walsh.
Walsh.
Walsh, thank you. They developed a tool called Chevron WP7 that allows you to develop or unlock your phone, which provides developers with the capability to deploy an app that they're writing, or homebrew apps, not to the emulator on the PC, but to the actual physical device. You can see what it works like in the real world. You could do that through Microsoft's developer program, but that costs $99 a year. So for the Chevron fee was only $9. So if all you wanted to do was just test apps until you were ready maybe to go through the developer,
just want to learn,
or wanted to run homebrew apps, this was the deal. So, but the thing was, they were essentially getting what they call tokens from Microsoft to enable this on a per phone device, and they had reached the 10,000 milestone. And it was actually the Raphael and company that decided not to, at least temporarily, get more tokens from Microsoft, not the reverse. It wasn't Microsoft that said, no, we're not doing it. The problem was these guys discovered what Microsoft had discovered much earlier, is that because of the vast array of hardware types in the Windows Phone ecosystem, including many models that Microsoft didn't even know existed, because these guys, especially Samsung, created a bunch of different versions of their phones, it's actually very hard to support software updating on these devices. And they've had a lot of problems with certain phone types that just can't get this thing to work, and it's been kind of a support nightmare. So my gut feeling is they'll probably do more in a little while once they clear through their support queue. But the rumor was that Microsoft had shut down, Microsoft shuts down the homebrew guys, and it's like, that's not what happened.
Hey, I did see this one, and I thought, oh, you must be cringing. Linux on Azure?
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah. Well,
put everything in the cloud.
If you can compete, if you're going to compete with Amazon Web Services, of course, they don't limit it to anything. You can put any operating system on there. You can do whatever you want. So
exactly,
it only makes sense.
So, it does. And, right now, there's a way you can get Linux to run on Azure. It's not pretty. It's not easy. But what according to some, as Paul calls it, internal documentation I have seen, that is not related to the Windows Phone documentation that we just described. It's a roadmap about Azure, and it's really interesting. They've got this thing they're doing. It's a what they're calling a persistent virtual machine. So right now you have virtual machine role on Microsoft's Azure cloud, but it doesn't store your state. So it's not all that useful. But they're going to start enabling it to store state. So you're going to be able to put Linux, any distribution you want, your own choice, on there as a customer. You're going to be able to put SharePoint on there. You're going to be able to put SQL Server on there. And they're going to launch what they call Community Tech Preview, which is like a pre-beta of this in March. I don't know when they're going to have the final, but a lot of big businesses are actually super interested in this, just for the reason you said, Leo. Like that's what they want to do. They want to take their operating systems or their apps that they already have and just run them in the cloud, like you can do with Amazon.
Right.
So Microsoft has been avoiding doing this because they wanted people to re-architect their apps from scratch so that they were optimized for Azure. But I think they've realized, not everybody wants to do that, and not everybody's going to do that. So we got to give those people a way to do this if we want to continue to kind of grow our market for our public cloud offering in Azure. So here it comes. It's coming.
Something else is coming. My phone seems to be making noise. Holy cow. Just decided all of a sudden John Cougar Mellencamp was the song of the hour. Do I win? I think this was the year we finally could say goodbye to Internet Explorer 6. What is the percentage now?
In the U.S.
Did they send you that? They say, you see this disposable cup? Throw it out, just like IE6.
Actually, so this is actually a non-disposable cup.
Oh,
that looks like
a disposable cup. That's confusing.
Plus, it has the IE9 logo on it, even though what we're talking about is getting rid of. Oh, it also has a little IE6 heartbeat on the back. See how it went still there?
Oh. What does that mean? We're flatlining? What does that mean?
It is flat.
And in fact, it is kind of, it not only is IE6 share down, but so is IE share. So it's kind of.
This passed through my head today. I almost blogged about this. But there's a weird thing in the tech industry, and it's not unique to the tech industry, but because of the rapid release cycles we see here, you kind of see it more frequently, where in order to sell the current version of a product, you kind of have to dump on the old version. Even though a year ago this was like the greatest thing in the world. Apple does it. You know, Microsoft does it. They all do it. And Apple is a little friendlier about it in some ways. They'll always say something like, "Last year we released the world's greatest whatever," and I know you didn't think it could get any better, but look at this. But you know, with IE6, because it's you know, it's dangerous now to use IE6. Actually, it's unsafe, and of course, it's not even slightly web standard compliant. So it behooves Microsoft to want to get this thing out of the market. But what a weird position to be in, where you're essentially hunting down your offspring to kill them, you know, as quickly as you can, you know, and you almost don't care whether customers use the more recent version of the product or use some other product. You just don't want them using that thing. It's kind of an awkward situation, I think, for Microsoft to be in. But, you know, good for them, I guess, you know, going for it.
Yeah, they have a whole IE countdown site where they like highlight different countries as they kind of stamp out more and more of IE6. Yeah. So U.S. is down to under 1% now, they say. So we're in the champion circle.
That's right. Exactly. Thank you for not using our product. You are a champion. It's weird. It's just weird. You know.
Yeah.
Well, it's a security issue, frankly. I mean, it is important.
It is, but also there's still a lot of business users who are stuck with it because they developed apps around it. Yeah. So that's a lot of people are like blame the people who are still using it. Well, don't blame them. A lot of them are stuck, like they're inside their corporate firewall with rules about you can only use IE6, guys. That's it.
It's very common.
Yep.
I see it on laptops, you know, when you're traveling, maybe on a plane or a train, you walk up the aisle and you see like IE6 in a window, and it's like, this is the tech version of child abuse. It's terrible.
Can you tell? So you can look at it and you can see it, and you'll know it's IE6 if you see it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What does it say? A big 6 on it? 666.
Yeah, it just has that style of toolbar. You can it's like old versions of Office. You can kind of look at it and say, oh yeah, I remember that.
We're going to get our tip of the week, software pick of the week. Actually, we've got 2 programs. Naturally, we would be doing an enterprise pick of the week, but I don't understand it. There is no codename bingo this week. Is that one of your resolutions? Are you killing codename bingo?
No. I just thought it would be more fun to do CES rumors of the week.
I like that. I like that.
I have an awesome rumor, by the way.
Do you?
Awesome.
I completely made it up, so that
makes it even more realistic.
Yep.
As most rumors, it's made up. We're going to talk about Audible.com for a moment, though, before we get to those tips. Audible is has been for many years our sponsor, and they love this show. You know why? Because both Paul and I are major Audible fanatics, listening all the time. I'm listening to a novel right now by a guy named Eugenides. He wrote Middlesex, which I loved. His new one's The Marriage Plot's fantastic.
Eugenides?
Yeah, is it Jeffrey Eugenides? Yeah.
That's an excellent name. It sounds like the guy who was in Fletch too.
It is Eugenides. I think it's Jeffrey. Yeah, Jeffrey Eugenides. Yeah. Anyway, but it's kind of literature, and I don't really want to recommend literature on this show.
Who does?
Oh, come on, branch out for the new year.
Really? Should I? Because I mean, it's a wonderfully written novel. I'm also, of course, A Clash of Kings, which is the sequel to Game of Thrones, because HBO is making that. And I want to have read the book, because I don't like, and I have to say, this is one thing about Audible. I hate seeing the movies before I read the book, because when you listen on an Audible book, it just brings it to life. You can almost painting a picture in your brain. And so almost always I prefer the book to be painted in my brain, and then I'll see Matt Damon is,
there was an article in the New York Times about audio books, and they were saying that for a certain group of people, this is the only way to enjoy a book. And then for another group of people, they refuse to believe that audiobooks are reading.
I know. And that's and I get that every time. I say, I read a book. They say, no, you didn't. You listened to it.
Yeah. So I think what happens, it's sort of like Mary Jo was saying with the notes that she handwrites. People learn in different ways.
Right.
And that we all have different triggers. And some people, in the case of reading, are more visual or whatever. They need that kind of component to it, or they need to hear, they
I
need
still
to hear
read paper books, and I enjoy it. But I tell you, every time I'm holding a big book, I'm thinking, boy, I wish I were listening to this.
I've almost been killed falling asleep reading big books.
Yeah,
I appreciate the whole audio/ebook thing.
I'm a huge Audible fan on the iPhone and the Android phone, and I'm told now, the rumor was March for Windows phone. The Audible app is fantastic. Your whole library is there. You can download whatever you want to listen to. So what I know you're listening to something right now.
There was an absolutely terrible Stephen King TV miniseries on about a month ago called Bag of Bones, which is a book that he wrote back in the late 1990s. It was so bad. My wife and I actually watched both parts of it, and I said, you know I've read this book because I've read everything he's ever written, but I don't remember it. And I remember the bits and pieces. I got to go back and do this one again. And the audiobook version of this book, which is Bag of Bones, is also narrated by Stephen King, which makes it kind of excellent.
Oh, neat.
Stephen King does some interesting stuff, but he writes about writing in this book, which I find very interesting. Not that I do the same kind of writing as he does, but he writes about the process of writing, and I recognize some stuff in there. In fact, there's a version of a line which I said to one of my co-authors with regards to the Delphi 3 Super Bible, which we often discuss, which was he had asked me, why are we doing this? Like, what kind of people are we that we can do this? And I said to him, Gary, I said, we're broken. There's something wrong with us. And there is a line like that in this book. It's not exact. It's almost exactly the same line, that there's something wrong with people who write. There's something, they're wired wrong. In the case of fiction writers, it's a slightly different thing, obviously, but it was the same basic thing. So I was fascinated by that aspect of this book, that there's a lot of stuff in there about writing. Of course, Stephen King has also written a book about writing called On Writing.
I highly recommend.
Yes.
Well, that's a great book.
Yeah, so this is kind of like a gothic ghost story romance kind of a thing, which is it sounds weird, but and it's certainly a convoluted story. I mean, it's paced very strangely. But really what it's about is a guy who loses his wife, and then it's essentially coping with that, and then finding out things about the past that he didn't know were happening, both with his wife and then with the place where they live, because, of course, in a Stephen King book, something has to be haunted. So it has that aspect of it. So it's I sort of described it, I think, as vintage King, and what I meant by that is I honestly think that he reached a point in his career where people essentially stopped editing him. You know, that he just kind of blurts this stuff out, and they're like, yeah, it's going to sell. What the heck? You know, and it goes on a little bit too long, as some of his books do, but it's a fascinating book. And again, you know, because it's narrated by him, I think that's something special.
Can't wait. You know, this is when I first joined Audible, they had almost 0 Stephen King books on here.
Yeah, now almost everything by him.
Now that everything, and that's a really good example of why I'm a big fan of Audible. They are fans of audiobooks. They take it serious. They've kind of almost taken it upon themselves to bring books into the audio sphere that weren't there before. Now, remember, I joined in 2000. I've been a member for 12 years now. And science fiction and Stephen King are two areas where they just took it over. And now they've got everything, including that new one, which I have on my list. I know you liked that.
Still part way through that one. I actually stopped a bunch of stuff to go reread this book. By the way, the book on writing is also on Audible, and
Stephen
it's
reads
also
it.
narrated by Stephen King.
I listened to it on Audible, and oh boy, did I love that. A memoir of the craft, he calls it. Yeah, if you're a writer and you haven't read that, that is another one. Well, here's the deal.
I'm very interested in the process of writing, and of course, I talked about how I'm changing up how I do everything. So this stuff is very timely in a way.
Yeah, this is wonderful. Highly recommend it. So there's 3 books. There's the problem, right?
Yeah.
You only get one. But your first one's free, and we hope we'll hook you. Just go to audible.com/windows, and you can try it for free. Your first month is free. It'll be the gold account, so that means you get a book. If you get, if you like it, keep going, and you'll get a book a month. But which is, good. I mean, it's great. And if you don't, cancel at any time, and the book is yours to keep. I think you will. The only problem I find with Audible is with 100,000 books, it's hard to pick just one. So there's a couple. Bag of Bones. I must have read that at some point. But my Stephen King is woefully inadequate, so I might have to go. They've got Misery. You liked Under the Dome. You didn't like the ending. I've been reading the Dark Tower series. That's going to keep me busy for a few years. All of these are on here. Audible.com.
A few years, yeah.
Oh, God, yeah. There's how many of them are there?
At least. I think there's like 8 of those.
It just goes on and on.
Yeah.
Audible.com/windows. You're going to love it. Give it a try today. Let us get start with our tip of the week, and I think that comes to us from Paul Thurrott. I like this one. It's funny that you should mention it because it was Gina Trapani's pick yesterday on This Week in Google.
so happy to hear that.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's no sin in having that. It's two different audiences, but it just shows you how good this is.
Yeah, we most of us are involved with at least one social networking service of some kind.
Yeah.
I mean, in some cases, many. Facebook, Twitter, Google, LinkedIn, whatever. This site is not actually a central dashboard where you can go and configure your privacy settings with one click. It's not like that, but it serves as a reminder that you need to do this periodically, and it provides links to those places on those services where you can do that. So it is, what is it called? mypermissions.com. And it's basically, it's probably a one-page website with icons for each of the services. You click on the one you're on, it goes to that page on that site, and it just gets you right to that place. I think Facebook makes a living trying to be, trying to obscure where stuff is. So it gets you right to that location. So again, it's not like it's an application or some kind of a nice program that does this thing, but it's just in the theme of resolutions again. Start off correctly with the new year. I mean, this is something I've been dealing with. I've been looking at online services and how, if you post a photo from your phone to an online service, what are the permissions on that thing? And how can you make sure you're doing the right thing? For example, Android offers that capability through Google+, and that stuff goes out to Picasa Web and also to the new Google+ interface. And I had to really root around in there for a while to figure out what the heck was going on with sharing, because for all I knew, it's like you take a picture of your kid at a basketball game or something, and then you just published it for the whole world to see, and maybe that's not what you're looking for. So,
if I just go to my Twitter settings from this page, it is like there's 100 things I've agreed to.
Oh, Facebook is even worse. Facebook, and it's like there's a thing you can do in programming where you obfuscate code,
right?
And it makes it really small but impossible to read.
Yeah,
I swear they did that with their privacy settings page. It is exactly the same.
Oh yeah, it's like what?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's probably this would be a good way to start. I think a very good way to start the new year. And let me just see my Facebook. Now that you
you don't want to look at it's awful.
Oh,
that's just app settings. You're going to get into that.
There's more. There's apps.
Gritty.
Oh boy, privacy settings, timeline. It just goes on and on and on. Wow. I don't even remember letting Zumocast access my Facebook, but they still.
Of course not.
They still have access.
They work specifically in a way that you will never remember that you did.
Life is crime? What is that? They can access my basic information, my photos, post to Facebook as me, and access my data anytime. I don't even know who they are. Guess I'll be removing that one. Good tip.
You could spend a day just doing this.
Yeah, everybody should do that.
And you should.
Yeah.
Maybe you should.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to take up the space with too many software picks. The first one is really just a repeat of one we did in the past. There's a really cool Metro-style text editor for Windows called Bend that was up on Codeplex, and then inexplicably it was taken down. We never found out why, and someone just alerted me to the fact, Andrew King that is, that it's back. And if you're familiar with Metro TWiT, for example, or Zune, the Zune PC software, it's got that kind of style of interface, kind of a cool program. So I just wanted to alert people.
But it's for regular Windows.
Yep, regular Windows.
Regular Windows, cool.
And oddly enough, the other one is also with regards to text, rather. And Matt Whitlock wrote me and said, I heard you complaining on Windows Weekly about how you can't just paste as text automatically, that a lot of programs don't support that kind of key combination where you can just do a Control-Shift-V or whatever for text. So we built an add-on for Windows that will allow you to assign a hotkey, like, say, Windows key plus V.
Oh, neat.
And when you paste that into any program, it comes in as text.
Isn't that sweet?
Yeah.
This is why everyone should know how to program.
Right. Or at least know someone who knows how to
somebody.
program.
It's so nice to be able to just do that. Say, oh, yeah, well, I can fix that. Yeah. And then Mary Jo has her enterprise pick of the week. Mary Jo?
Yes. Pick of the week is System Center 2012, which I've had some of the different point products in the family as my pick of the week before, but I put the whole family together because on January 17th, Microsoft's got some big announcement about System Center coming up. They've got a webcast, and the president of the Server and Tools division is going to be speaking. So my guess is we're going to hear about the RTM of System Center 2012. And like I said, it's a whole bunch of different systems management products that are in a family. And some of these, as I've noted in previous episodes of the show, can even do things like manage iPads and Android phones. And it's a whole new world from Microsoft on the System Center front. It's not just tools to manage Windows. It's tools to manage everything that you've got in your heterogeneous environment. And the rumor is on System Center that they may actually make all of these different products with really long, inscrutable names one thing. So it may just be you buy System Center 2012, the family, instead of buying all these different point products and trying to get them to integrate. So that would be really good in terms of a simplicity message. We'll see how customers like that if that comes to pass.
Well, that would be geeky.
And if you want to see a really bizarre commercial that Microsoft has for System Center, do you want to see this?
Sure.
Go,
Oh my God.
okay, go to my site and find the System Center article. It's the second one, and click on the words that say, "This will be broadcast here," and you're going to see a very odd plug for this.
All right, Microsoft to detail new private cloud and System Center strategy. Wait a minute, something's still
See the thing where
playing
it
in the
says, "This will
background.
be
Hold on, I'm getting some sort of. There we go. That was stray audio. Okay, and then you say click. Will be
It's the second
broadcast
paragraph.
here.
Broadcast.
All
Click
right.
on this and look at this little promo.
Here's a little ad for System Center. Oh my!
What? No! No! I know, it's crazy. Calm down. I'm you, with a message from the future. The future? Over the next 2 years, you're gonna have to double your capacity. That sounds expensive. Go with the private cloud solution that doesn't charge.
I am enjoying this
All the
man's
flying
acting.
cars in the back.
Smart. Choose Microsoft Private Cloud Solutions.
Wow.
Built for the future. Ready now.
I'm thinking
That suit. Want one? You got one.
that was done in house. I'm thinking. Wow.
Who says System Center doesn't get any love? Come on.
Yeah.
There's there.
Great acting. Great acting. And now I think both of us could, all three of us could participate in this. But our rumors of the week, Microsoft edition for CES next week, and I'll reiterate, next week we will be broadcasting Steve Ballmer's final CES keynote. We'll do that live on. Did I say Monday or Tuesday? Let me check the
Tuesday, right?
calendar again. Yeah, Tuesday. No, Monday,
Yep.
the 9th, 6:30 p.m. Steve Ballmer's keynote, and then the following day, you and Paul and I will do a Windows Weekly where we analyze that at 10:30 Pacific. So, but we will broadcast Steve's keynote, and if you guys would like to just be the wise asses in the back, we can arrange that.
I live for that, Leo.
And then, of course, we'll cover CES all week long with wall-to-wall coverage starting Sunday night, going right through Friday. But what now? And we are going to the Nokia press conference because I figured they're going to have something to show us, right?
Yep.
But help me. The rumors are useful because it gives us an idea of where to plan our coverage. What do you think?
I think you need to be.
So
involved in those.
my rumors are purely conjecture. Should I
Okay.
just do those and let Paul do his?
Conject.
Okay.
Conject away.
Conject. Okay, so I think Microsoft's been really kind of downplaying this keynote to people. They're saying, don't have any big expectations. Like, this is not going to be a place where we make major announcements. So I think you're going to see them announce things like the new Connect for Windows SDK, the software development kit, and the commercial license for that maybe. Because right now it's under a hobbyist license, so you can't actually develop products that you can sell using this SDK. And I think they also may reveal, if not give some ship dates for the new Connect that's going to work on a PC. Because you can't use the one that's for the living room
Right.
with your PC.
You can't
There's
get far
a
enough
one
back.
that lets you, right, you have to be close, right? So they've got some kind of a new Connect sensor coming, and I think CES would be a good place for them to show that. I also think you're probably going to see them show off the Lumia 900, which is codenamed Ace. And I don't think they'll be ready to actually give a lot of details on it yet, although Paul's already revealed it's going to be shipping in mid-March. But I think they're going to play that up a lot. And I think they will show Windows 8. I think they'll probably maybe even show a little bit more of Windows 8 on an ARM tablet. That would be my guess. But I don't think we're going to get any new major details like timing or anything like that. I think they're just going to kind of throw it, show you that they're making progress with that, basically.
But it does sound like the keynote, and it actually validates our decision to broadcast that. The keynote, despite Microsoft's protestations, is going to be something to pay attention to.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So those are my guesses, pure guesses on my part.
Paul, what are you hearing?
I'm hearing nothing. These are complete guesses. These are just awesome.
Awesome guesses.
I made these up in a dream.
Okay, good.
The first one is I expect Microsoft Chairman Bill Gates to make an appearance.
No.
Last.
Love
keynote.
it. Sure, of course he will.
And I hope that they will announce and show off iOS and Android versions of Microsoft Office.
Yes, because they've announced the iOS versions.
No, only one note.
No.
So
just one note. Oh, that was a rumor when we heard that.
Yep.
Okay.
Again, this is complete,
I'm liking
nothing
them.
behind it. I've not heard this from anybody, nothing like that. Just stuff I'd like to see.
Well,
it could happen.
Can
It's
we
plausible.
count on you guys to Skype in and watch the Ballmer keynote together with us and broadcast your thoughts?
Yeah. So you'll just call us as usual?
Yeah, I'll send you an email, but I don't want to overwork you.
No, it's fine.
Just understand that will be Monday night.
At the same time,
That will be Monday night at
I know, both of
9:30
us
your
need to
time.
Yeah, we're both going to be blogging it too.
You're going to be there
anyway.
anyway. Good. So we'll Skype you in.
It's a work event.
And it's one of those things where you can sit quietly, and if so you think of something, you could be typing.
Yeah.
Because we'll be watching Steve doing all the talking. So good.
Great.
So we will do that. Special coverage, 6:30 p.m. Pacific, 9:30 Eastern on Monday the 9th, followed by the digital experience with Tom and Sarah at Vegas. And then the following day, we will do a Windows Weekly show, not on our usual day, but on a Tuesday at 10:30 Pacific, 1:30 Eastern time on TWiT.tv as part of our overall CES coverage. Fantastic. I'm excited. Wouldn't
Do you
that be
have any guesses, Leo? Predictions?
Yes, Bill
Did you
Gates
have
will
any?
release mosquitoes
Into the crowd.
into the crowd. Well,
One of them has a deadly hantavirus.
Which one? The history of Microsoft keynotes at CES is pretty checkered.
That's for sure.
They've announced a lot of things that never did anything. But I do think that there's some poignancy to having the last Microsoft booth and the last keynote. We're going to go over to the booth and really take a tour of it because it's a big booth. It's got a nice carpet. And
Nice plush carpet.
nice plush carpet. It's
Good
always
for sleeping on.
It's always been the best carpet at CES.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I look forward to that. I don't have any. I think CES, it's been a while since CES really surprised me. It used to be that I would even tell my people, no plans for CES because we will not know what the story is till we hit the ground. It hasn't been that way in a couple of 3 years, really. Because, the internet and people pre-announce, but we will be at the Nokia press conference. But you're right. We're going to see the Lumia. Of course we're going to see the Lumia. They're not going to have a surprise phone. I don't think there'll be any surprises from Microsoft, but I would like to see those things that you said, Mary Jo. We'd like some Windows 8 information, for instance.
Yeah, they should at least show it, I feel like. I mean, that's what people want to see. They want to see there's been progress and, come on,
I do think it's possible that Steve Ballmer will fly in from the back of the room on a wire.
I like it.
In a Superman outfit. I'm just saying. That could happen. Mary Jo Foley writes for about Microsoft for ZDNet's blogs at allaboutmicrosoft.com, and it's a must-read, especially during CES. She'll be tapping away. Paul Thurrott, of course, his site is the SuperSite for Windows, winsupersite.com, and his book is Windows Phone Secrets. You heard it here first. It's no secret now. He and Raphael are working on Windows 8 secrets as well. He said he'd never do it again, but we know he cannot give up the writing.
Every time I think I'm clear, they pull me back in.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Mary Jo. Thank you all for joining us. Next week, off schedule, 10:30 Pacific for Windows Weekly, but we'll be back at our regular Thursday, 11 a.m. Pacific time the following week. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time on Windows Weekly. There's an update for Silverlight. I'm so excited.
I'm drinking a steaming cup of IE6 today.
Where do you get Internet Explorer mugs? That's cute.
They arrive in the mail.